So it's a bit of a different video this week because we've just bought a 57-foot narrowboat as our holiday home now that lockdown is over. And one of the things that I've done for it is make some DIY boat fender hangers so we can protect our hull while we're moored up and pick them up and put them away while we're in locks. Don't want to touch that. Anyway, keep on watching if you want to see how I did it. So first things first, you can find 2 free printable templates in my blog post below, depending on the shape of your boat. The larger ones are designed for our boat, the smaller ones I actually copied from a neighbour, which fits his boat much better. If you don't have a printer on board, then here's 2 ways of how you can make your own template. The first one is to use a profile gauge to get the shape of your hanging rail. And because it creates a very snug fit, I'd recommend giving yourself a few millimetres either side for expansion and to make it easier to remove. Or a cheaper way, which I did because I didn't have my profile gauge on me, was to grab some cardboard, mark with a pencil either side of the rail, leaving about 5mm again each side, then make it level with the flat part of the roof and draw the height of the rail on the back. Then I poked through with a pencil, that way I could line them up on the front and saw with a steak knife to cut out a notch. And just play around with it. Cardboard is free and you can easily bend it and fold it around to create the shape you want. And once I'd got the profile of the top piece, I was able to transfer it to a larger piece of cardboard and create a longer arm for it. And I gave it a decorative curve where I'd be putting a hole for the rope. Although in hindsight, turning this into a boxy shape would remove the need for a coping saw later. So let's talk tools. I was originally going to take these down to my dad's woodyard so I could borrow his bandsaw, because jigsawing really small projects like this can be an absolute pain. But I had to ask myself, how many narrowboaters really have a bandsaw or a scroll saw on their boat? I bet not many. So I challenged myself with a variety of tools. I also go into a lot more detail about tools in that blog post if you want to have a read, but I'll give you the quick notes version here. I had an offcut of exterior hardwood ply, 18mm thick. This was actually from my DIY dog kennel video a couple of years ago if you remember it. And after cutting out my templates, I started with my neighbour's one. I first drilled holes in awkward angles so I could slot the jigsaw blade in and work my way around. Now with this template being a curvier one than mine, this would actually be perfect for a coping saw throughout. But the reason I didn't like the jigsaw overall is that you need to keep moving the clamps constantly so they're not in the way of the jigsaw's base plate. And this actually takes up a lot of time, probably double the amount. Also, it's not always stable and can often jump around on smaller sections. And it can easily chip when drilling the blade holes. But I suppose that's the risk of dealing with plywood. Then for the rest of them, I worked onto my bespoke design. As mentioned before, this is a much better fit for my boat. And for other tools, I actually found the quickest method being a combination of a handsaw and a coping saw for the curved bits. And I didn't have to keep moving clamps, cutting the time in half. And these are the kind of tools that are perfect for storing away on a narrowboat anyway and don't make a lot of noise. But you will need to make some relief cuts on the notch area, either by hand or with a jigsaw, meaning spending more time sanding it down to tidy. I'll talk about some sanding tips in a minute. So then I got to my penultimate one and it dawned on me, why on earth wasn't I using my multi-tool to cut the notch? You can get battery powered ones, by the way. It created the perfect straight cut on that notch and drastically reduced the need for sanding in awkward spaces. So for sanding, I did most of the flat bits with an orbital sander. For the trickier angles, like the curves, a cordless rotary tool is perfect. But for the tighter, boxy angles, nothing really beat a cheap set of rasps, which oddly I found very therapeutic. For the rope holes, I drilled with a 16mm flatwood drill bit, but I'd stop at the point where the sharp end poked out, then flipped it around and continued, and sanded any sharp edges away. And to finish, I filled any dints or chips with a quickset wood filler, left it to dry for half an hour before sanding again. And for a waterproof finish, I just used what I had in my shed, and that was some old black metal paint. I couldn't find an HD roller, so I painted with a natural brush, left it for 4 hours before adding another coat. So don't forget, if you want to make some yourself, there's some templates below. And yeah, hopefully in the next few weeks, I'll be talking about the touring side, but also going back to the bungalow project. So it's not all just going to be about this. Anyway, if you've got any questions, let me know below. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.